Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Productive Agent Podcast. My name is Tony Ruiz, and I'm the founder and host of the Productive Agent Podcast and Facebook group. Today, I'm joined by an awesome realtor here in town, top producer. Please welcome Mr. Matt Vela.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man. I'm glad you put this together.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm excited. So Matt has been in the real estate business for 7.5 years. He works at Keller Williams City View, and he lives in the Lavernia, Texas. And he works mostly in Floresville, Seguin, Karnes City, St. Hedwig, and that whole southeast expansion. He is a member of the Neal and Neal team and has been at Keller Williams City View for all 7.5 years. So let's get into it. Man, Matt, I really appreciate you being on the show. We've met a couple times and talked about some real estate stuff, but really our connection goes back to MacArthur High School. And I graduated 2002. I didn't know you, but my brother graduated 2005, and y'all were on the golf team together. And he talks very highly of you, Dan and Dan Barrett, and Matt Vela, and like the legend of Matt Vela and golf. So talk to us a little bit about that. What year did you graduate MacArthur?
Yeah, so I graduated MacArthur from 2007 is when I graduated.
Okay.
But yeah, it sure makes me feel old just thinking about those days. But your brother, Dan Ruiz, and of course, Dan Barrett, I mean, goes way back, good times, good guys, and just, just brings back a lot of memories. And it's funny to fast forward to think that we're already here. But yeah. I'm glad that we connected, and I'm glad, you took up real estate, and I'm sure, we can help each other out somehow for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I was just texting my brother before the show here, before this recording, and he was like, man, that was 16 years ago. That's crazy. I know whatever math he was talking about, but time flies, man. Especially like since I've been in real estate, I'm like, crap, there goes another month. Like it just goes by so fast. But
yeah, those grades come a little faster when you're in real estate, but it's worth it. We love what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. So Matt, tell the audience a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? We just mentioned that you went to MacArthur High School. What did you do before real estate?
Yeah, so before real estate, believe it or not, I was 100% golfer, and that's as crazy as it sounds. I played professional golf. Well, I guess to rewind a little bit further, I'm from here. I'm local to San Antonio. I grew up in Windcrest, the city of lights, over there on the northeast side. By Walsham Road. But I grew up there, went to elementary school there, Gardner Middle School, MacArthur High School. Then I attended St. Mary's University on a golf scholarship. So nice. Golf has always been huge to me. I mean, ever since, the age of 3 years old, my dad put a club in my hands.
Wow.
And I just, I was hitting balls in my backyard and just kind of caught on to it pretty quick, man. And it's played a vital role in who I am today. And all the experiences I've had, and it's kind of led me to here. I mean, it's not my profession now, but I do feel a lot of what I learned with golf has kind of, helped me make the transition and use some of those life skills in real estate.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So I'm guessing your dad was a golfer, and that's why he put some clubs in your hand at 3 years old. That's wild.
Yeah. He was, he was just a casual golfer, nothing too crazy. He was pretty good. He could shoot in the 80s, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
But whenever he introduced me to golf, he actually took an adult set of clubs, literally like cut them basically in half, put a grip at the end, and so I had kids' clubs. When I was 3 years old, 4 years old, and that's pretty rare because kids' golf clubs back then weren't as common as they are now. I mean, you can go to the golf store now and pick up a high-end golf set and spend hundreds or $1,000. These were just, we found them somewhere, cut them, put a grip on there, and I'm just swinging them in the backyard, literally aiming for a cup at the back of the privacy fence. So
yeah.
For a short time we did move to Corpus Christi, Texas, and that's where my dad was at the time for work, and I was lucky enough to go to a summer camp at Gabe Lozano Golf Course. So I'd go there in the summers. My mom would take me and drop me off, and we'd do all kinds of stuff there, from practice, not just practice, but like learning the rules and just interacting with other kids and stuff. So those are good memories too. So you can see it kind of started at an early age. It was a lot of fun. I didn't take it too serious. And then at some point I got into golf tournaments, and realized like, okay, maybe I'm pretty good at this. I got an edge. I'm, a little bit better than these other kids.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to have a coach there at Gabe Lozano in Corpus that kind of took me under his wing and just kind of developed me. And I got better and just, kind of stuck with it. And, middle school came around, high school, I was, that's where I met your brother, but, competitive at MacArthur and was able to play good enough there to get a scholarship at St. Mary's.
Yeah.
And I had success there, man. I had some pretty good results there that kind of teed up a resume for me to give to a gentleman out of Dallas who founded a private jet company, Dallas Jet National, Brad Harris. He was my sponsor for about 4 years there. And I was able to put together a full schedule of golf tournaments, like 20 to 25 tournaments a year.
Wow.
Just travel and play and, all kinds of stuff, man. I mean, it's not just golf. It's the life on the road. Being away from home's tough.
Yeah.
You deal with those kinds of things, but you also meet a lot of people. You meet a lot of people and you come across different situations. And, I feel like that kind of does transition to the real estate world a little bit because we're dealt different cards every day. So,
That's for sure.
I was always meeting new people. I mean, I'd stay at host houses at the golf courses and, just be their kid for a week,
That's awesome, dude. So what's the best part of your golf game?
I mean, to be honest, I'm pretty consistent. I would say, in all aspects of my game, that's probably why I was successful.
Yeah.
I wasn't weak anywhere, but I was a pretty consistent driver of the golf ball. So I could hit it straight pretty far. But then when I actually did really well, I was putting good, able to score.
All right.
I don't want to get too technical with golf terms, but, all around I had a pretty good game, man. I mean, I was, and you have to be to be able to make any money out there. I mean,
Sure.
You got to be able to break par in 4 rounds. Like sometimes the cut line was 500 par and you're like shaking your head like, oh my gosh, like
Wow.
I shot 200 par and I'm going home.
Yeah. That's wild, dude. Do you give any lessons? Cause I could use some golf lessons. I know that.
I've given some pointers here and there. I've had some buddies ask me and, I mean, I'm not like a coach or anything, but I can see the basics and I know what works. But yeah, I mean, even I had a coach too. I mean, you can always work on something with golf. Same thing you can work on with real estate. Like there's always something you can get better at. So,
that is the truth. Well, we'll make plans to go out to San Pedro. I'll buy you a bucket of beers and we'll go hit some balls. Because I could use some help. I'm a bogey golfer and I don't really practice very much. But I good enough to go out there and enjoy the round. And it's like, hey, sometimes I'll go a little bit under that. I think the best I shot was either 84 or 82. But that was when I was playing pretty consistently. But yeah, we'll have to get together and hit some balls, and then you can tell me how bad I am and what to fix. So
yeah.
Well, cool, man. No, that's a great story, and I'm sure there's, so many more stories that you have in your experience that we could just spend a whole hour and more just talking about your golf experiences, right? But obviously we're here on a real estate podcast, so we want to kind of get into some things that you've learned in real estate. So you kind of went from a professional golfer, trying to make it and playing really, really well and learning as you went, but then you got interested in real estate. How the heck did you fall into real estate?
So it was because of my brother. So he was a good friend, or he's still good friends with JJ Guarino, which I'm sure a lot of us know at the time. And he kind of introduced me to him, and JJ kind of took me under his wing and just kind of mentored me for quite a while there. And I joined Keller Williams City View, did their Ignite program at the time. That was like their onboarding training for new agents. And yeah, man, JJ had me doing rentals and, looking at contracts, and he's like, just go out there, show these houses, and just, it's okay if you mess up, just kind of go with it. And I tell him how it went, and we talk about it. And, it was just so, so early on in my career, I just didn't know what to expect. Right. And, so I was basically hungry for whatever I could get real estate wise. And lo and behold, there was an opportunity to show a house for Clint Neal. So I'm on the Neal team now. So this is before I even knew Clint.
Hmm.
And they're like, "Yeah, I'll pay you $50 to go show this house." And I'm like, "Sign me up, I'll be there."
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think we've all been there, right? At the beginning, it's like, I'll take a rental. I'll take anybody that's looking to do anything. I'll go show a house. Yeah, let's do it. You know?
that's exactly right. So I did, and I remember Clint texted me over his client's information. So I
Hmm.
reached out right away, introduced myself, went the whole 9 yards, ended up showing him the house. I think maybe Clint revisited with them how it went. And they said, yeah, Matt was great, had a successful showing. And I think it kind of sparked his interest to talk to me a little bit more about, hey, have you thought about joining a team?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I mean, their team was only 3 or 4 agents at the time, So
Yeah. Wow.
it's just so crazy, and we're up to 40 plus agents right now. So
Yeah.
just to see that growth is pretty incredible. But just to revisit where it all started too is pretty incredible to look back on that.
So you
Yeah,
were kind of one of the OGs of the Neil and Neil team, really. Well,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. That's I look back at like memories that pop up on Facebook, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like everything just looks different.
Yeah.
It's just nuts. It's nuts.
Well, for sure. Yeah, you mentioned before we started recording that you spent about like a month or two, maybe as a solo agent, and then you
Mhm.
kind of quickly realize, like, hey, you know what? The opportunity to join this team might be
Yep.
best for me. Can you talk to us a little bit about why you decided to join a team?
Yeah, yeah. So for me, I do well in structured environments, and I think being so new to the business, I didn't have a big foundation to sit on, right? So I felt like they offered the right training and guidance that allowed me to kind of expedite my career quick. I mean, I didn't want to transition from golf and just do nothing for a couple of years. Like I didn't want to have to fight that battle. So once I kind of spoke with Clint and Shane and all them at the Neil team, I kind of knew like they were going to help speed up my learning curve. And I knew that I could learn quick. I mean, that was one thing I did well at golf. Like I'll
Yeah.
kind of revert back to golf a lot, but it's kind of self-driven, like how much you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. So,
Yep.
I knew I had the work ethic to show up every day, to practice, right, to learn the ins and outs of the business. And essentially that's what I knew I could do. So, and having a team, right? That's kind of cool to have other people to lean on and count on for guidance or support. I've always been part of a team too. Golf teams. So I feel like that kind of mirrors it as well. But just having others to encourage you, to feel part of a group that is striving for an ultimate goal, and to have accountability, that's a big thing too. I mean, we can all hold ourselves accountable, but are we really being, hard on ourselves? So, it's good to have people to check in with and say, these are my goals. What do I got to do to get it? And you break it down to like a science.
Yeah.
So you break it down and you say, this is how many calls I got to make. This is how many contacts I got to make. And if you do those things, odds are you're going to get pretty close to your goals.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, when I first started, there's all kinds of things about goal setting, and it really is sometimes just a numbers game. It's like when you hit this number and you hit this number, and this is the average, this is what you're going to get, and it's pretty consistent. There's no
Yeah.
like quick way around it. It's like you got to put in the work. And it's just like golf. It's like very rarely does somebody pick up a club and start hitting a ball like straight. Usually they miss. Their first swing is a miss. And it's like, wait, let's talk about the grip. So that's really cool. What was that first year like in your business? So you joined onto the Neil Neal team. What did that look like? Can you talk to us a little bit about your experience in your first year?
Yeah, I mean, it was a learning curve. It was a lot of trial and error. I mean, I hit the ground running, and I just was kind of like if the lead was needed to be contacted or shown a house to. I mean, I would jump on it, right? But I'd hit certain roadblocks along the way. Like, shoot, I don't know the answer to that question, but that kind of falls back to the team aspect. I felt confident enough to I'll be able to get the answer. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like I was just clueless. But it was just kind of grasping the understanding that it's not all going to happen at once. Like the first year, you expect it to be to slow. Like you're not just going to build up from nothing, right? So I kind of had low expectations, but I would get positive things happening. I would get a deal or a good buyer or a seller come through, and it would kind of boost my confidence a little bit. And then with the encouragement of the group around me, like that kind of helped just kind of keep me going. But I just first year, I mean, you just you can't really set your expectations too high just because there is that curve of, just kind of learning the ropes. I mean, like anything else you do for the first time.
Yeah. Do you remember how long it took you to close your first deal? So, I relate this. Yours might have been different, but I think NAR talks
Yeah.
about the averages. Like it takes about 3 months to close your first deal. And I remember
Yeah.
Carmen Bean is a huge solo agent here over at EXP, and she tells a story that it took her 8 months to close her first deal. And it's like, damn, that's a long time,
Yeah.
but I run into newer agents and they're working hard and they're doing the things that we're telling them to do, but they feel like they should be getting a paycheck like in a month. And it's like, yeah, that doesn't necessarily happen that way. It takes a minute. And I got discouraged early on, and thankfully I had mentors to lean on, and they're like, dude, you're crushing it. It's going to happen, keep going. And then it did. And then it just started taking off. Well, what was your experience like?
So I think one of the first deals I did was a rental. I remember that.
Yep.
And
Same.
cool, cool thing about that is I ended up getting that guy into a house when he was ready to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I already sold his house too and referred him out to move somewhere else out of state.
Sure.
So that, I mean, a rental, help him buy and then help him sell, and then a referral from somebody else. So I mean, that was my first client ever in real estate. So those things do happen.
Yeah.
Not everyone's gonna, I guess give back that much. But my first true sale, like from a buyer from the beginning, I mean, it probably took me probably at least 2 months. It wasn't anything crazy. I mean, luckily, like I said, with the team, it kind of speeds up the process a little bit. So,
Sure.
they have standards and we get leads and things like that. As long as you're doing the right things, you can expect to get a pretty good chance to get a contract. So I think it was within 2 months, once I onboarded and went through, the training and learned, kind of the buyer scripts and all that stuff, the buyer representation, just kind of learned the basics, and that alone kind of takes a little time to grasp. And then, but yeah, within a couple months I had one.
Yeah, awesome, man. So you've been in the business for about 7 years, coming up on 8 years.
Yeah.
What have you learned in your time? How does your business look different now? Because I'm sure now you've kind of built up a sphere, you built your database, you're probably getting a decent amount of referrals at this point. What have you learned from that first year to now to kind of help build your business?
I think the biggest thing that's helped me is probably building relationships and talking to people like friends and family. I mean, you can treat every lead, like a robot kind of thing, where it feels like I just need to get this lead converted and go to the next one and this and that. And that's great for the short term, but being able to stay in the business is kind of like you have to do those things that allow it. You have to nurture those people, and they may not be buying this house in front of you right now, but don't even focus on that. You want to focus on, why are these people buying a house? Or, is it for their family? Is it for a job relocation? You want to get to know these people on a personal level because they're putting a lot of faith in us to help them find a house or sell a house for them. So the thing that's probably helped me the most is just grasping that, like we're a big part of their lives for this couple months, that they're looking to find a house. And the minute you start treating it like a just transaction, it's probably not going to get back to you in the future. So, and even if you talk to a lead and they're not going to be buying now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. And, you just have to keep building that rapport with them over time. And who's to say they don't, send somebody your way, or maybe their friend, their friend or family member is going to be buying. So,
Yeah.
yeah, just a good approach on that's helped a lot.
No, for sure. I mean, that's huge. Sometimes I meet somebody at an open house and they're like, oh, we're not doing anything until the fall. And I think two things. Number one, I go, hey, I need a paycheck in the fall as well. So I'm going to keep in contact with you. And number two,
Yeah.
Buyers are liars, so they might say they're waiting till the fall, but they might be moving in the late spring or summer, so just kind of stay with them without being obnoxious and like ruining that relationship, and so obviously, it's funny how I interview all these different agents from different backgrounds, and I have more coming in all the time, and I listen to these books and I listen to these podcasts, and really it boils down to like the same thing. Like everybody says the same thing, of just like nurturing relationships, building that database. You're one phone call away or one new lead away from changing your life. That like all of a sudden they're going to refer you brother, sister, mom, dad, all these deals from just meeting one person,
Yeah.
And it's that's the most important thing that some people just can't grasp, that we just keep on harping about it over and over and over, build those relationships.
Yeah. Well, I think when agents put a lot of pressure on themselves, like I got to get a deal, I got to get a deal, they lose that, that focus of being smooth to people and building that rapport. They just want to kind of just get to the point quick. Like, do you want to write a contract? Let's go see this house. And they're a little more salesy, and that tends not to produce as well. I mean, it can work, and you might get away with a few, but for the longevity of things, I mean, you definitely want to have the approach from why these people actually want to make a real estate move.
Yeah, for sure. So, you live out in Lavernia, and you do some business with like land and ranch. And anytime I come across a lead like that, they start asking some questions that I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I immediately pick up the phone and call Matt and be like, hey, can you help me with this? And what the heck do I need to look out for? So can you talk to us a little bit about how land and ranch is different than a normal residential transaction?
Yeah. So, I mean, typically when I get somebody looking for land, the first thing I want to find out is like, what do you want to do with this land? Do you want to do a business? Do you want to build a house? Do you want to hunt? Do you just want it for a park just to go out on the weekends? Or do you want to build a church? Like, if you just focus on the land without knowing why they're buying it, you're pretty much just a lost cause, basically. So if you can narrow it down to why does somebody want to buy a piece of land, then you can get into the questions of, okay, what are the restrictions on this land? Or, is there mineral or oil production on it? You get into property lines and what kind of exemptions, ag exemption, and things like that. So there's a bunch of stuff to look at, like floodplains. Is this even buildable? So because somebody who's going to build a house would care about that, as opposed to somebody who's just going to go hunt. They don't care if part of it's in a flood zone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I mean, it's still kind of the same concept because you want to know why they want to buy something. But once you can narrow that down, then you start to dig into the more specifics of like land stuff, like utilities, what utilities are available. If they're not, how much is it going to cost to get utilities on there? Because I always thought that was real easy to do. Like, oh, you just hook up utilities from the road. I mean, septic tanks are like 15,000. Wells are like $20,000+ right now. So the last thing you want to do is sell somebody land and then they call you like, do you know how much it's going to cost you to run water to this place? So,
well,
yeah.
Yeah, just that 1 minute of explanation of that, I'm like, yeah, I don't necessarily deal with that because but we obviously want to know why, our clients are wanting to make a move, but usually it's like, okay, we need a bigger house, or we want to downsize, or we want to relocate. Well, those are pretty straightforward, but like you said, I mean, just rattling off those 6, 7, 8 things of like, well, why the heck do you want to buy this? You said some things that are like, oh, I didn't even think about that, So yeah, I mean, that's education right there for anybody listening that might have a client that's looking for land. These are the types of questions that you want to ask, right? So talk to us a little bit about, and of course, I was just thinking like you could probably do an entire 1-hour class just talking about, your experience of selling land, and going deeper into that.
Something important too on land, like surveys. I mean, you think a survey for a house like $400 or $500, but don't give a quote off the top of your head for a survey of some land. Those can get upwards of thousands of dollars. Like 10 acres could cost you, $3,000-$4,000 survey. So I mean, you definitely don't want to jump the gun and say, yeah, we'll just pay for the survey. Then you're going to be paying for the survey.
So bottom line, if you sell houses, and you help residential people, and then you come across somebody that wants to buy land, give Matt Vela a call, because he pretty much answers every single time I call him or calls me right back, and he's a wealth of knowledge. So you're my land guy, and I appreciate you for answering those questions that I have from time to time. So if there's an agent that's interested in getting into land and ranch and kind of focusing on that, can you give them some advice on how they should go about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say go on the MLS, pull up like the farm and ranch section or go like to the lots and acreage section and just start looking at prices of land, like studying the MLS, like what is price per acre? Like what are the different things on this MLS sheet different from like a home? Just kind of become familiar with what that looks like and maybe get some questions together and find somebody who has some experience with land sales and just say, hey, is this important to know? Or I mean, kind of learn from other people, but ultimately just kind of studying the ins and outs of it will get you there. But the MLS is a pretty great resource to just kind of get started because we always go to just the 1 to 4, the single residential,
Yeah.
but there's a whole other world out there of farm and ranch and lots and acreage. And, it's pretty intimidating sometimes, but if you really just kind of study it and read very carefully the descriptions on there, you can learn a lot of it instead of just kind of browsing through it like, oh yeah, I got this.
Yeah. You know what? I don't even know. I think I've maybe looked at that a little bit once or twice. I've helped some people buy like, smaller lots, like I want an acre or 2 acres, I'm going to build a house. But yeah, once you get to like 5, 10 plus acres, it's like, yeah, that's a different ball game.
And I mean, there's still houses listed in there too. I mean, they're listed in the regular residential MLS and they'll go to farm and rent because it might have 10 or 15 acres. So it could appeal to both, you
Sure.
know.
Yeah. Well, cool. No, I might have to check that out just to go see what's out there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you got any active listings going on right now?
Yeah, I've got, well, I actually have 10 acres on Old Pleasanton Road, 410 South. I got some acreage out there
Okay.
for sale. It's got a barn stall on it, a little pavilion. It's got 2 septic tanks. It's got a well, so 2 utility poles. I had somebody call and said, hey, I think I might want to put a dog park, an RV park on this place. So, you get some interesting situations going on.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, we always come across different stuff, and I mean, that's not the only thing I do, but it's cool to have that too to get some diversity. Um,
for sure.
but yeah, for sure.
I'm drawing a blank, but I have a friend that's trying to sell a property that has 5 acres. Has some
Yeah,
horses out there. So if you have a buyer, I can't remember exactly the location. I'll hit you up afterwards. And let you know where
yeah,
that's at. So if you know anybody, she's trying to move that. So kind of wrapping things up here in the interview. Takeaways. What do you think is some of the most important things that a listener should take away from this episode? Maybe kind of driving a point home that you've already mentioned, or maybe mentioning something that you haven't mentioned yet. What do you think is important that a listener takes away from this episode?
yeah. So I'd say the most important thing that's been working for me for a while now is take care of your people, treat them like family or close friends. Get to know them and don't just talk real estate. Maybe get to know a little bit about their personality, their style, because that's going to come in handy whenever you do get them under contract. You'll kind of know them as a person a little bit better, and they'll listen to you better, and it'll just be a better overall experience that they'll draw from and want to give you business in the future and do repeat business with you. Trying to think what else. I would say value your time because, obviously I said early on I wanted to do anything and everything, but at the same time, you got to have a life and you have to set boundaries and you do have to, you have to put a value on yourself because, I mean, if not, you'll have people just running you ragged, and it's very important if you want to have a sustained career that you kind of find those boundaries and value your time and set time aside for yourself. Time blocking works really well. I use my calendar all the time. So, right, they say it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist. So, although I've gotten better at that, I wasn't as good as that in the past, but it works wonders. It really does. If you see it on there, you stick to it, and you just kind of have more of a workflow going throughout the day because
Yeah,
it's easy to get lost in the day without having a plan or a kind of a guide to go by. And I guess that kind of goes in hand with like stay organized. I mean, stay as organized as you can, and just focus on your strengths. Because not everybody's going to be great at social media, or maybe they're better at calling, or not everybody does cold calling, or maybe you're great at open houses or door knocking. So I mean, you just find what you're good at or had success with, and just kind of lean on that. You don't have to do everything. Actually, I think if you do everything, it might kind of weaken your overall skill set. Just focus on your strengths and go after them.
Yeah, I agree on all of that. Those are great little tips there. I appreciate you sharing that. Matt, I want to really thank you so much for coming on. I think you brought a lot of value to the listeners, and it's been a great episode. If somebody wants to get a hold of you on social media or email or phone, or can you talk to us about how they can do that?
Yeah. I mean, I've got Facebook, Instagram. I think it's just Matt Vela Realtor. Should be pretty simple to find, but my cell's 210-771-2335. You can email me at matt@neilteam.com. So I'll probably be around on the Neil team for a while. So you know where to find me.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Any last words wrapping up?
Man, not a whole lot, but just stay motivated, stay hungry, and don't forget about yourself. I would say that, just take care of yourself first, and everything else will be a little bit easier.
Amen, man. Amen. Well, guys, that's the show. I hope you enjoyed it. Lots of great information. I hope you took some notes, jotted some things down, saved a little timestamp of what you liked the best. If you did, if you got value out of this, share the show, guys. Pass this on to a friend. Maybe they're looking to buy some land. Send them over to Matt. He'll take care of them. Leave us a review. Give us a rating. That really helps us grow the podcast. Join our private Facebook group, The Productive Agent, if you're in the real estate game. You could also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. So we thank you for joining us today. Now let's get out there and go produce.